What is an inclusio? Okay, an inclusio. Once again, you don't have to use the fancy words. If you just want to say bookends, that totally rocks too. Okay, inclusio is a literary frame where the section begins and ends with the same phrase, word, or theme. Okay, it's where it begins and ends with the same phrase, word, or theme. You'll see a lot of this in the Psalms. Often, you'll see it in a narrative where it kind of ends right back where it begins. And then sometimes you'll see this in the epistles too. So let's look at a couple of examples. Does anybody have a Bible on their phone or an actual like book Bible with them on them? Can someone read the first part of Psalm 8 and then the last part of Psalm 8 for us?
What translation?
Whichever, if they did a good job, you should be able to tell.
I like the New Living for just everyday stuff, so I'll pull that up.
Cool. Yeah. Ooh, I don't, that's a pretty loose translation. I'm actually interested to see if they caught the inclusio. This will be fun.
So the first verse is, O Lord, your majestic name fills the earth. Your glory is higher than the heavens.
Okay. And how did they end the song?
O Lord, your majestic name fills the earth.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like we get the same vibe from the beginning and the end. All right. Good job. Good job. That was me congratulating the translators.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the translators are trying to do us a favor, so then they over translate so that it makes more sense in English, but then they actually lose the rhythm or the repetition in the original language, which I don't prefer. I'd rather it be a little harder to read in English, but we see what the author was actually trying to do. But we'll talk about translation theory later. Let's read Matthew 1:23 and then Matthew 28:20. Somebody want to read that for us?
Yeah, I can read. Matthew 1:23. I'm not on mute, right? Okay, no. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us.
Okay, very cool. So Emmanuel means God with us. Now let's look at Matthew 28:20.
Teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you, and behold, I am with you always to the end of the age.
Okay, so what's the common theme there?
I don't know. Can you read 123 again?
Oh, yeah, shoot. Let me go back.
Oh, my bad.
No, it's fine. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us.
And then what's the promise that Jesus makes?
I'm with you always, even to the end of the age.
Yeah. So we see at the very
The
beginnings.
bookends.
Yeah. So the bookends of Matthew is the woman's going to have a baby and his name will be God with us. And then the end of Matthew, Jesus says, hey, I have all the authority of heaven and earth, which is, Jesus for I'm God. And then he says, I'm going to be with you. So it ends with I'm God and I'm with you. And it begins and ends with I'm God and I'm with you. I'm God and I'm with you. Right?
Okay.
So that tells us when we are reading the book of Matthew, Matthew thinks that there's two pretty important facts that he wants you to have in the back of your mind when you're reading every single passage of this whole book. He wants you to know that there's a foundation under every single passage of Jesus himself leaning forward saying, I'm God and I'm with you. I'm God and I'm with you, right? So Matthew puts that as the bookends of his book because that's a theme throughout that entire book. So that means that now I want to be careful here. I never want us to read any book of the Bible through a lens unless the author handed it to us. So the author literally handed you a lens and said, hey, there's a big theme in here. I'm God and I'm with you. Put that over your eyes and now read this book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using a lot of eye illustrations. I don't know if I usually do that or if it's because I'm rocking a patch and not noticing it. But anyway, yes. So
Are there
right,
many other oh, sorry. I have a question when you get a chance.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, are there many other books of the Bible that are like that? Because I know when you started talking, you said we'd look at like kind of like little passages for their structure. And so I don't think like would look that far apart, I guess, to look for some of the structure, like to look at the beginning of a book and the end of a book. But is that something that we should be looking at?
Yeah, I would actually say larger swaths of scripture are very likely to utilize inclusios. Um, let me show you real quick. Hold on, let me look up. Yeah, okay, okay. For example, like the narrative of Joseph, it
Mm-hmm.
begins and ends with God's presence being with Joseph.
Okay.
So it
Okay.
begins and ends with God's presence with Joseph. And then well, actually, we're going to talk about Joseph in a little bit. That also uses another literary structure, but Joseph would be a good one. Um, Exodus begins with Israel and
Nice.
Egypt, and then it ends with God dwelling with Israel and the tabernacle. So there,
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to get too technical. There's also something called a contrastive inclusio, where the beginning and the end are the opposite, and that's supposed
Mm-hmm.
to say something about God. So Exodus begins with them crying out in Egypt, and then it ends with them dwelling in the presence of God. So the
Okay.
beginning, this is what I'll say: the beginning and the end are always important. It's just we want to ask how
Okay.
so. And
There
it,
you
Yeah.
go.
yeah, the beginning. So, or some people would call it the top and the tail. You always want to, how does this start and how does it end? And that is always important, especially in narrative. I would say in narrative, that's one of my top 5 keys I'm going to go look for is the beginning and the
Okay.
end.
Ecclesiastes is also an inclusio. Like it talks about vanity at the beginning and vanity at the end.
Ooh, good job,
That's
Rachel.
another our very holy roommate Sarah reference because knows the book of Ecclesiastes inside and out.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Google says that the Beatitudes are also inclusio because they both mention that theirs is the kingdom of heaven,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
beginning and the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Romans also. The exact Greek phrase obedience of faith is used in the first and last chapter. It's the
Nice.
exact same Greek phrase, like word for word.
Wow.
So
Okay.
there's a couple of those dudes. And that's nice because the inclusio tells you, hey, this is a massive deal in this book. So as you read this book, I want you to have this theme in the back of your mind. So it helps us know where to focus. So if you're reading passage in Matthew, you're like, I'm not quite sure what to look for. Well, here's one thing you should look for is when is Jesus being with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in Ecclesiastes. Now it's not hard to find vanity in Ecclesiastes. He says it 5,000 times. But yes, so excellent question. Hey, did you guys know that we have a free Bible study at www.womenteachtheword.com? You don't even have to type in your email, for now, at least. So better go grab it. Fancy would appreciate it.